here gathered together in thy name, do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us in all our consultations. And grant that we, having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the King, the public weal, peace, and tranquility of the island, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
This Honourable House now resumes its sitting. Call of the roll.
Mrs. Holness, Mr. Bartlett, Mr. Holness, Dr. Clark, Dr. Chang, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Samuda, Miss Grange, Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Mallow-Fort, Dr. Tufton, Mr. McKenzie, Mr. Chuck, Mr. Vaz, Mr. Warmington, Mr. Charles, Mr. Green, Mr. Morgan, Mr. Hutchinson, Mr. Terry Long, Miss Smith, Dr. Dunn, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, Mr. Main, Mr. Davis, not Miss, Mr. Mr. Witter, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brownberg, Dr. Charles, Mr. Chin, Mr. Clark, here. Mr. Cousins, Mrs. Crawford, Miss Daly, Miss Davis, Mr. Golding, Mr. Graham, Dr. Guy, Miss Hamilton, Miss Hannah, Mr. Henriquez, Mr. Henry, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Lawrence, Miss Lee, Mr. Miller, Mr. Montague, Miss Morrison, Mrs. Nita Garvey, Mr. Paulwell, Mr. Phillips, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Phillips, yeah. Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Siblist, Mr. Slowly, Mrs. Vaz, Dr. Wheatley, Mr. Williams, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Wright.
Members, once again, welcome all our members on both sides of the aisle to the sitting of the House. And I want to welcome very specially this afternoon 2 students from the University of London. They are law students, I think, who are joining us this evening in the gallery. We welcome you and trust that you will find this sitting an informative and an interesting one. We also want to make say a special welcome to those joining us online by the various social media platforms. House Leader, state.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I now ask for the House to be suspended for a few minutes to allow us to just tidy up some matters on the agenda. Thank you.
Members, the question before the House Leader is seeking this suspension for a few minutes, not enough for you to leave and go away. Just a few minutes for us to do some tidying up between both House leaders of business. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. The House is suspended. So it means
Every Jamaican has the right to know what is happening in Parliament, to know when new laws are being passed, and to give their opinions on legislation before either house.
every Jamaican has the right to see their representatives in action, making laws, holding the executive to account, representing the people, working for the benefit of all Jamaicans.
It is your right to observe first-hand meetings of the Senate, meetings of the House of Representatives, and the meetings of parliamentary committees. You may also take a tour of your parliament.
To find out more about the Houses of Parliament, please call 876-922-0200, follow us on Instagram and Facebook, or visit our website at www.japarliament.gov.jm.
Reggae Month is February. February is Reggae Month. Go catch the rhythm on Reggae Month TV, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. daily in February. Catch the mega reggae concerts, interesting reggae documentaries and symposia, reggae conversations with pioneers of the music, and lots more. Reggae Month TV all days in February, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. on PBCJ and the Ministry of Culture social media pages. Get all the details real time on the Reggae Jamaica mobile app, and come catch the rhythm this Reggae Month.
Family Planning Board, 5 Sylvan Avenue, Kingston 5. The way we treat our children.
This February. February is Reggae Month. Go catch the rhythm on Reggae Month TV, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. daily in February. Catch the mega reggae concerts, interesting reggae documentaries and symposia, reggae conversations with pioneers of the music, and lots more. Reggae Month TV all days in February, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. on PBCJ and the Ministry of Culture social media pages. Get all the details real time on the Reggae Jamaica mobile app and come catch the rhythm this Reggae Month.
Here is a special parenting message brought to you by the National Family Planning Board, 5 Sylvan Avenue, Kingston 5. The way we treat our children directly impacts what they believe about themselves. That was a message brought to you by the National Family Planning Board, 5 Sylvan Avenue, Kingston 5.
Violence against women and girls is a human problem, not just a woman's problem. It's a problem for men too. Gender violence takes many forms, including sexual assault, domestic violence, relationship abuse, sexual harassment, and sexual abuse of children. The magnitude of ongoing violence against women and children in our country is cause for alarm. We can end the violence. It requires all of us to end the violence. I call on all our men and women in Jamaica to take a stand. And men, especially, must get involved in this movement to create a better world for their daughters, their mothers, their sisters, their aunts, their uncles, their fathers, their sons, and for themselves. Let's protect and reassure. Let's unite to end gender violence.
Your government is working for you. On the East Coast, there's the Southern Coastal Highway Improvement Project. The highway, which began in January 2017, is now slated to end in March 2025. Another segment under the Southern Coastal Highway Improvement Project is the Maypen to Williams Field, which is approximately 81% complete. Next stop, the Morant Bay Urban Center. Preparation and demolition exercises began in July 2022 at the Goodyear factory in the parish where the center is being constructed. Construction phase has already started. Third stop, over in Portmore. Plans are afoot to make the Sunshine City the 15th parish. With the parish status comes the Portmore Resilience Park, which ground will be broken by year-end 2022. For in the west, we have the Montego Bay Perimeter Road, starting from Iron Shore to Bogue, from Montego Bay down to Montpelier. More updates to come as we reignite our nation for greatness.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
How many more must die because of reckless drivers? How fast is too fast? Make we take time, no man. Obey the rules of the road. Drive with care.
Here is a special parenting message brought to you by the National Family Planning Board, 5 Sylvan Avenue, Kingston 5. The way we treat our children directly impacts what they believe about themselves. That was a special parenting message brought to you by the National Family Planning Board, 5 Sylvan Avenue, Kingston 5.
Reggae Month is February. February is Reggae Month. Go catch the rhythm on Reggae Month TV, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. daily in February. Catch the mega reggae concerts, interesting reggae documentaries and symposia, reggae conversations with pioneers of the music, and lots more. Reggae Month TV all days in February, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. on PBCJ and the Ministry of Culture social media pages. Get all the details real time on the Reggae Jamaica mobile app, and come catch the rhythm this Reggae Month.
Motorists, when driving on the road, here are some simple reminders. Look out for and extend courtesy to all road users. Give plenty of room to pedestrians, especially in wet weather. Drive slowly. No bother wet them up. Slow down when approaching a pedestrian crossing or school, and always be prepared to stop. Remember, a school zone is a 30-kilometer zone. Cut your speed. Drivers of large and slow-moving vehicles should always keep in the far left hand of a dual carriageway. Keep it simple. Drive left and pass right. These are just simple reminders of your road duties. Drive safely.
Crime is Jamaica's #1 threat. Working together to fight COVID-19, we must all live good and unite against crime and violence in Jamaica. Live good means talk it out, don't fight it out. We must live good to build a safe Jamaica. Stay home, stay safe, live good.
Jamaica and its workforce are advancing quickly. Life-changing opportunities are arising. You need training and support. We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
February is Reggae Month. Go catch the rhythm on Reggae Month TV, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. daily in February. Catch the mega reggae concerts, interesting reggae documentaries and symposia, reggae conversations with pioneers of the music, and lots more. Reggae Month TV all days in February, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. on PBCJ and the Ministry of Culture social media pages. Get all the details real time on the Reggae Jamaica mobile app, and come catch the rhythm this Reggae Month.
In a race against time, to reverse the effects of climate change by one simple action which has positive and enduring effects. That's right, plant a tree, leave a lasting legacy. Join the My Tree Legacy program at your alma mater and share your work with us. Submit videos and pictures of you, your family, your friends, and colleagues planting trees. Every tree counts. Plant a tree today and keep climate change away.
Reggae Month TV, on air, on cable, online.
This is our home, Jamaica, and tourism is the lifeblood of our country. Let's all feel good again. Whether with family or friends, we want you to enjoy your staycation.
We have to ensure that they are comfortable, they feel well protected.
New standards are in place to ensure your safety. We are here to serve you better. so you can have the best experience. Come out and rediscover Jamaica.
We are ready.
We are ready.
We are ready.
Rediscover Jamaica.
Was your friend in the mix? What if it was your sis in the pics? What if you were the terrorist watch list? What if? Suppose that one. What you do? Don't like, don't comment, don't click. Report it, block it, don't make it stick. Don't trust everybody on the internet. Use it to step up your intellect. So online you have to be safe too. Don't believe the rumors or the fake news. Don't go everywhere they try to take you. Protect the kids or they find a way through. What if it was your friend in the mix? What if it was your sis in the pics? What if you were the terrorist watch list? What if? Suppose that go on. What if? Wait up, free.
Reggae Month is February. February is Reggae Month. Go catch the rhythm on Reggae Month TV, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. daily in February. Catch the mega reggae concerts, interesting reggae documentaries and symposia, reggae conversations with pioneers of the music, and lots more. Reggae Month TV all days in February, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. on PBCJ and the Ministry of Culture social media pages. Get all the details real time on the Reggae Jamaica mobile app and come catch the rhythm this Reggae Month.
Brutality isn't a legality. There's no rationality as to why this abnormality should become a mentality. A mentality which kills and tortures. Are you really telling me you're afraid to speak out because you might be called an informer? With alacrity. If you know someone who has been victimized, or oppressor continues to lurk in their lives, let us extend our hands to our brothers and sisters who are being victimized, and never see violent acts and ignore them. Let us come together and be the example, so we may end a barrier on brutality.
Get vaccinated. Everybody get vaccinated. Good. Get back to life, get vaccinated. Good. Protect your life, get vaccinated. Good. Protect your family. Aye. Before me do road, me have to get vaccinated. Good. You do it already, you get me ratings. Good. It's free for the public, keep your savings. Good. If you not do it yet, the risk you're taking. Protect for your life in this pandemic. Good. COVID are nothing for you play with. Good. And sanitize and mask for wearing. But we move forward, we get vaccinated. If you a barber, shopkeeper, taxi driver, go get vaccinated. Good. Whether dance or church, me a preach like pastor, go get vaccinated. Good. Follow the soldier, the police, the frontline workers, and go get vaccinated. Go get vaccinated. All ages, go get vaccinated. All street youth, get vaccinated. Good. Get vaccinated. Good. Everybody get vaccinated. Good. Get back to life, get vaccinated. Protect for your life, get vaccinated. Good. Good. Go get vaccinated. Good. Everybody get vaccinated. Good. Old and young get vaccinated. Protect your family, go get vaccinated. Good. Good. Good.
Coding and programming share the same language, so I got more interested because of programming. Because a couple of years ago I did wanted to do programming at VTDI.
Here is a special parenting message brought to you by the National Family Planning Board, 5 Sylvan Avenue, Kingston 5. Let them overhear the nice things you say about them to others. That was a special parenting message brought to you
are arising. You need training and support. We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
That you abused her, her family.
Mr. Jones.
And your colleagues, how will they look at an abuser? When the law comes knocking, you'll have nowhere to run.
Mr. Brown, you're under arrest. Please get up, hands behind your head and interlock your fingers.
Turn your back on abusers. Report gender-based violence to the police. There's no excuse for abuse. Call the Bureau of Gender Affairs at 876-754-8577.
This is our home, Jamaica, and tourism is the lifeblood of our country. Let's all feel good again. Whether with family or friends, we want you to enjoy your staycation.
We have to ensure that they are comfortable, they feel well protected.
New standards are in place to ensure your safety. We are here to serve you better, so you can have the best experience. Come out and rediscover Jamaica.
We are ready.
We are ready.
We are ready.
Rediscover Jamaica.
Heartbeat of the world.
Jamaica is a beautiful place. Our people have a beautiful spirit, but we are too aggressive, and the way we interact with our friends and neighbors, I genuinely believe that we have the capacity to deal with this problem of violence. But it's going to take all of us. It's going to take every organized group of Jamaicans that we fundamentally reject violence. Violence has no place in a modern society.
No one is immune to mental illness. Your age, race, gender, social class, or economic status is no match for addictive behaviors, anxiety or eating disorders, depression or schizophrenia. What is having a good social support system. As the saying goes, in times of test, family is best. Unfortunately, many are denied the benefit of the support of family and friends because of stigma and an oppressive silence around mental illness. Let's put an end to the silence.
Speak up. Speak now.
End the stigma.
Share your story.
End the stigma.
A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Here is a special parenting message brought to you by the National Family Planning Board, 5 Sylvan Avenue, Kingston 5. There's
You know who have the gun them. Stop going like you don't notice. You notice.
Crime is Jamaica's #1 threat. As we stay apart while working together to fight COVID-19, we must all live good and unite against crime and violence in Jamaica. Live good means talk it out, don't fight it out. We must live good to build a safe Jamaica. Stay home, stay safe, live good.
The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
I'm saying to every single Jamaican, you will decide how this pandemic ends. If you wear your mask, if you maintain the physical distance, and if you decide to take the vaccines when it is your time, the pandemic will end. But if in frustration or just ignorance, we do not take responsibility, then the pandemic could end badly, including the loss of more lives.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
A major area in high school for me was IT and EDPM. I did that for 2 years, and from then I realized that there was a drive for more of technology. So I decided to take this step.
People always say government must be held accountable. But it's whose job to keep government accountable? And what it really mean? Well, you see, when ministers and public officials have to provide answers for decisions made and can face consequences for those actions and decisions, that means they're being held accountable. Keeping government accountable is a key responsibility of our elected representatives, and the Parliament provides special tools or mechanisms just for this. As citizens, we need to understand how they work so we can play our part to ensure that the members of Parliament we elect are using the tools and doing their job well. Here are 4 of the primary tools you should understand and talk to your MP about. Tool number 1, Minister's Statements. To effectively monitor the government, MPs need to stay informed. Every Tuesday when Parliament sits, different cabinet ministers are scheduled to give an update on decisions they're making on our behalf. These updates are called Statements by Ministers. They cover a wide range of national issues that other MPs, media, and citizens may have questions on. Further, that brings us to tool number 2. What you do when you want information? You ask questions, and that's why we have question time. Both opposition and government MPs can submit questions to the Prime Minister or cabinet ministers for details on, for example, how a contract was awarded or expenditure to purchase tablets for schools. So if you ever have a question for a government minister, try asking through your MP. After all, that's why they're your political representatives. They should represent your questions and concerns to the government. Tool number 3, parliamentary debates. When cabinet ministers present the government's proposals for new policies, laws, and programs, parliamentary debates allow both opposition and government MPs to air concerns, make suggestions, and endorse proposals. If you ever watch those debates, you know they can get a little fiery. But the debate is important as it informs decisions and continues until a vote is taken on the way forward. Then we have tool number 4, parliamentary committees. The general sittings of Parliament are not always sufficient for detailed examination of government work, so oversight committees are formed using government and opposition members to do just that. Some committees like the PAC and the PAAC are in place for an entire parliamentary term. Their job is to monitor the use of public funds to find ways to increase value and efficiency while reducing waste and corruption. Cabinet and state ministers are not appointed to oversight committees since they are a part of the government. Members of these committees are both opposition citizens to share their opinions, concerns, and recommendations. So there you have it, 4 accountability tools of Parliament that are used to make sure government run right. Visit jampja.org to find contact information for your MP. Invite them to meet with the community so they can better represent your issues and concerns in Parliament and keep government accountable. Get involved and let's make Jamaica land we love, Jamaica land we own, and Jamaica land we run well. A message from the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, funded by the European Union and the Inter-American Development Bank in partnership with the private sector organization of Jamaica.
Jamaica is a beautiful place. Our people have a beautiful spirit, but we are too aggressive, and the way we interact with our friends and neighbors, I genuinely believe that we have the capacity to deal with this problem of violence. But it's going to take all of us. It's going to take every organized group of Jamaicans that we fundamentally reject violence. Violence has no place in a modern society.
Whenever you hear the following tone, the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, will be giving information on an emergency situation affecting the island. Please be on the alert and listen to your radio and television for further information. This was a test of the emergency alert system, brought to you by ODPEM.
Come with us to Lime Tree Lane, where life is sometimes sour, but sometimes sweet.
Oh, I was in the bar yesterday, trying to convert over 2 man. I may hand make mistake and bungs down them drinks. And the other one said to me, why if you right enough and you cut it off? And same time, the two of them just hold me down and cut the hand.
Have a laugh and settle into Lime Tree Lane. Join us Mondays to Fridays at 7 a.m.
And when they done their feet on you. You understand me? No wonder the boy was having a high. No, come back here. Where do you think you're going? Let me go check in bed.
Only on PBCJ, the People's Station.
Remember that big project the government announced them was going to from when? You ever catch yourself and wonder what happened to it? Stop wonder like an outsider and start move like the country belong to you. You have a right to publicly owned information, and the Access to Information Act gives you that power. I know you have enough questions about how government are run or not run, so let me show you how it works. Say mosquito spraying going on in your community, your children asthmatic and you want to know what chemicals are in it. Or what about that Auditor General report and a public official getting twice his salary with no proper approval? Is your taxes and you want to know if they paid it back? First, do some basic searching to see what is already on government websites. If you don't see what you're looking for, make a formal ATI request by completing the application form on the ATI site or sending a letter or email. And remember, you don't have to say why you need it. It is your right. Make sure you send your request to the right agency, and once they confirm receipt, they get 30 calendar days to provide the information, a maximum of 60 if extra time is needed. Yes, I know you want access to everything, but sensitive documents are protected from the public for up to 20 years. For example, documents that would expose a citizen's personal privacy, or those dealing with cabinet discussions, the Governor General's office, or information on the investigative activities of the security forces. Any public officer who tries to destroy or hide any official documents can be sanctioned. And if you're having difficulties, the ATI unit will help. So, what if the chemicals in the mosquito spray are toxic? What if the agency did not even try to get back the money they paid out? Call or email your MP. Share the concern, because as your elected representative, they can represent your questions to the government ministers in the House. Remember, it is the job of parliamentarians to you to hold the government to account. Let's do our job to make Jamaica well. A message from the Jamaica Accountability Meter Port. Jamaica.
We need all Jamaicans to know that child abuse is not just an issue for the government, it's an issue for all Jamaicans. So we need everybody to help us to protect our children. If you know of a child who is being victimized, a child who is abused or neglected, just make that report so we can get that child the help they need. Calling or reporting is easy. All you have to do is remember to call 211. If you are an adult, if you're a child, if you are in church, in your community group, wherever you are, once you are aware there's a child who is in need of care and protection, just be the one and call 211.
one is immune to mental illness. Your age, race, gender, social class, or economic status is no match for addictive behaviors, anxiety or eating disorders, depression or schizophrenia. What is having a good social support system. As the saying goes, in times of test, family is best. Unfortunately, many are denied the benefit of the support of family and friends because of stigma and an oppressive silence around mental illness. Let's put an end to the silence.
Speak up. Speak now.
End the stigma.
Share your story.
End the stigma.
A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Jamaica, home of the resilient, passionate and hard-working. A people and a nation who have achieved and defied all odds, working to keep their economy.
Statements by ministers.
Madam Speaker, there will be two statements today. One by the Honourable Marlene Malahoo Ford, Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs. And the second statement will be made by the Honourable Audley Shaw, Minister of Transport and Mining. At this time, Madam Speaker, I'd ask you to invite Minister Malahoo Ford.
Minister, are copies of your statement ready for the opposition? Please go ahead.
Madam Speaker, the purpose of this statement is to provide a further update to this Honourable House and to the people of Jamaica by informing everyone that we will delay the formal naming of the Constitutional Reform Committee until the next round of the Vale Royal talks is held. Madam Speaker, I have repeatedly indicated that the reform work will be done in phases, beginning with the provisions which ultimately require the votes of the electorate to change through the process of a referendum. These provisions are set out in the Constitution of Jamaica at Section 49. They are the hardest provisions to change, as they are given the highest level of protection by virtue of the process and procedure required to change them. Madam Speaker, they are described as the deeply entrenched provisions of the Constitution. If the procedure which the Constitution itself sets out is not followed in any process to change them, the changes will be void and the Constitution will prevail. This is what Section 2 of the Constitution says. What does this mean in more simple language, Madam Speaker? We cannot do away with King Charles III as our head of state and establish the Republic of Jamaica without 2/3 of the members of Parliament and 2/3 of the senators first voting yes to the change, and then a majority of the voters who turn out to vote in a referendum also saying yes to the change. Right now, the Jamaica Labour Party government side has enough MPs to achieve the threshold of 2/3 vote in this House of Representatives. But, as we know, at least one senator on the PNP opposition side of the Senate would have to vote with all the senators on the government side to achieve the 2/3 vote in the Senate. The Constitution, however, provides that if the parliamentary opposition does not support the changes in the Senate, the matter can still be put to the people. But in such a case, 2/3 of the electors are required to approve the bill to make the change. What does this mean in more simple language, Madam Speaker? Collaboration and cooperation are required between the two sides of the Parliament, and between the Parliament and the electorate to make the change to abolish the constitutional monarchy and establish the Republic of Jamaica. You know, it doesn't matter how often we say this, questions still arise about the process and the vote. Madam Speaker, it is also no secret that we operate in a competitive political space where the two major political parties, the ruling Jamaica Labour Party and the opposition PNP, are constantly vying for the votes of the people to retain or gain leadership of government. Madam Speaker, I understand that the opposition does not want to take responsibility for the decisions of government, even when they made the decisions or had a consenting input in those decisions. And right now we see this distancing. Right now we see distancing playing out, for example, in the child safety restraint system in the Road Traffic Act. You know, Madam Speaker, I'm always amazed that when we speak about realities, these are realities.
Just a moment. Minister, I want once again to remind all of us in this House that there are the students that we speak about and the state of disorderly behavior in the society that are watching. There are some schools that put the program on so their children. Therefore, if indeed this gavel is hit, I don't expect you to speak above, and I don't expect you to cross-talk as openly as you have done. And we also have 2 law students from London sitting here. So really and truly, our children learn by what we do, and the example here is not going as well as it ought to. So please.
Madam Speaker, as I was saying, that it is no secret that we operate in a competitive political space where the two major political parties are constantly vying for the votes of the people to retain or gain leadership of government. And I understand, Madam Speaker, that opposition, generally speaking, does not want to take responsibility for the decisions of government, even when they made those decisions or had a consenting input in them. And Madam Speaker, we see this distancing playing out currently in the uproar about the child safety restraint system in the Road Traffic Act, which first came into the law under PNP administrations and then retained by the Jamaica Labour Party administration, but which is about to be modified, having regard to concerns raised. Having said that, Madam Speaker, it leads me to yet another expression of disappointment, echoing what I said in my last 2 statements to the Parliament on the 24th and 17th of last month. Madam Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition is still declining the government's invitation to participate in and name members of the Parliamentary Opposition to the Constitutional Reform Committee unless his conditions precedent about the Caribbean Court of Justice and requests for details of all proposed changes to the Constitution are met. Madam Speaker, I really do not know how else to say that there is no consensus to accede to the appellate jurisdiction of the CCJ, except to simply reiterate it. There is no consensus to accede to the appellate jurisdiction of the Caribbean Court of Justice. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, changing Jamaica's final court is not a matter which requires a referendum to do. Therefore, if we are proceeding incrementally with implementing the reforms, starting with those changes for which we will have to hold a referendum, I believe we should proceed with those matters. Otherwise, Madam Speaker, we find ourselves spinning in the vicious circle of talk without action. The Andrew Holness administration is bent on breaking this vicious circle. And I must point out that doing the work in stages is not the same as piecemeal reform in the sense of what the term is widely understood to mean. Incremental implementation is not piecemeal reform. The Leader of the Opposition, Madam Speaker, is demanding details of all proposed changes to other provisions of the Constitution, which I have indicated are not available at this stage. Madam Speaker, it is so important for everyone to understand and appreciate that the law-making process involves various stages. Going through the stages does not amount to unnecessary delay or unnecessary bureaucracy. There are stages, and the stages are sequenced. And when we step out of sequence, we have all kinds of issues. And I think there are enough lessons for us to learn to ensure that we do the work properly and in stages. And so, Madam Speaker, we're not yet at the stages where we can provide the details sought by the opposition leader. But we will get there, and when we do, we will make full disclosure and we will invite input. Until then, I have indicated broadly what the proposals will include. Madam Speaker, we know that there is no getting around taking meaningful steps to collaborate and cooperate in the process to reform the Constitution of Jamaica. The fact that the trust is so deeply broken means that we will have to work even harder, and we have to be sincere in our efforts. Collaboration and cooperation do not mean abandoning our differences. Instead, Madam Speaker, it means focusing on the things that unite us while working respectfully together in the presence of the differences. As I said before, the purpose of the Constitutional Reform Committee, the committee that is to be constituted, is to, among other things, assist in providing expert guidance and oversight to the government and the people of Jamaica during the constitutional reform process, to implement the recommendations of the Joint Select Committee on Constitutional and Electoral Reform, on which consensus remains, while helping to build consensus where it has eroded or is non-existent on other related matters, as we move to abolish the constitutional monarchy and establish the Republic of Jamaica. When constituted and operationalized, the Constitutional Reform Committee will provide a mechanism for constructive dialogue, respectful exchange of perspectives, and appropriate oversight. Madam Speaker, after the next round of the Vale Royal talks is concluded, we will formally constitute the committee and move ahead with the work, and it is hoped that that will be within this month of February. It was our intention to have the committee formally constituted, beginning its work in January, but that is now behind us. Madam Speaker, already I have considered making some changes to the sequence of the work to ensure that the bill with the proposed amendments is tabled soonest, while still allowing for the committee to play its role. Madam Speaker,
Madam Speaker, I ask for the Minister to be given sufficient time to complete her presentation.
I was about to tell you, Madam Speaker, that I am through. That is the update for the House.
Madam Speaker, the Minister continuously talks about her disappointment. I want to assure her that she doesn't have a monopoly on disappointment. I, too, am very disappointed. There's essentially three issues. Two of them relate to our readiness to join the government in proceeding down this path of a committee to look at constitutional reform. And the other issue is to put the government on notice as to our position in relation to the question of decolonization. We have not said that we're not prepared to appoint members to the committee unless the government agrees with us on the CCJ. We have simply said, we have not said that we are not prepared to appoint members to this committee unless the government sees it our way in relation to the CCJ, the Caribbean Court of Justice. What we have said is that our strong preference is that if we're going to embark upon a reform to remove the monarchy and become a republic, which we are fully supportive of and have been calling for a very long time, we want to do it in a wholesale manner, not a piecemeal manner. We want to decolonize Jamaica once and for all. And that means we move away from having a British monarch as our head of state, and we move away from having a British court as our final court of appeal. And that is our position. And I wanted the government to be very clear on that from the outset. But there are two issues which I've sought clarity on before nominating persons to sit on this committee. The two issues are what changes to the Charter of Rights 2011, which is in our Constitution as Chapter 3, the government is intent to pursue. The Minister has said in a letter to me that one of the things that the government wants to do is to provide for, and I quote, an up-to-date emergency powers framework. Now, the emergency powers framework is a contentious matter because of the way in which the government has been using it since 2017. In fact, we intend to seek clarity from the court on that matter. Now, where I hear that the government wants to provide for a modern emergency powers framework, up-to-date is the word that was used, up-to-date emergency powers framework. I want to know what exactly you are planning to do. I'm not asking you to draft the provisions, but I'm asking you to set out in plain language how you want to change the emergency powers framework in the Charter of Rights. I have not had any clarity from them on that. Just this week, there's another matter now I'm hearing needs constitutional reform, in a further amendment to the Charter of Rights from the Minister, to do with unexplained wealth orders. Unexplained wealth orders are a deliverable under the CMOC agreement, which was signed in 2019. The government has not brought legislation here yet to implement unexplained wealth orders. The police want it, CMOC wants it. Now I'm hearing that the ministers of the view that the Constitution would have to be amended for that legislation to be brought. CMOC has sought, as I understand it, legal advice on that issue, which does not agree with that position. I would like to see the Attorney General's formal legal opinion on that issue, because nobody up until now has ever considered that to introduce unexplained wealth orders into Jamaica, we have to amend our constitution. This is something that has come out of the blue for us. So, Madam Speaker, I am disappointed because I do not accept, and indeed I do not believe, that the government doesn't know what amendments to the Charter of Rights it intends to pursue. They very well know, but they don't want to share it with us. They don't want to disclose it to the Jamaican public. The other issue relates to deeply entrenched matters. Those are
the member's time for his response has expired.
How much time? How much time? How much time do you need? 5 minutes more? Madam Speaker, I ask that the member be given 5 more minutes to complete his presentation.
The question before the House is that the member be given 5 more minutes to complete his presentation, his response. Member? Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Member?
Thank you, Member for West Kingston. I appreciate the support. Oh, you said if I said aye. Oh. Yes, indeed. The other issue, Madam Speaker, on which I've sought clarity, relates to the same deeply entrenched provisions which the Minister mentioned in her statement. Deeply entrenched provisions are those which have the highest threshold of protection in the Constitution. They require not only that the legislation be passed by supermajorities of 2/3 both in the House and the Senate, and no government has a supermajority in the Senate, but also that the people vote and approve the particular change in a referendum. That's what deeply entrenched means. I have asked the Minister to tell me in advance which deeply entrenched provisions the government is intended to change and say why. I want to know where the government wants to take. No, I accept that in the course of the debate. Yeah, but they're being. How can they speak when I'm speaking? Yes, I still have 3 left. Madam Speaker, I think our request is reasonable. I think it is responsible. This is a process which I accept that in the course of the deliberations of the committee, things may change. The input of experts may impact where it ends up. But at the outset, I want to know where the government wants to go. And I think it's disingenuous and, frankly, poor governance on their part to be depriving us of this information and then saying they're disappointed in us. It's almost like they're saying we must close our eyes and follow them. And I want to know, these are important matters, fundamental matters to do with how Jamaica is managed. Fundamental matters affecting the rights of our people. And we have a responsibility as the opposition to uphold and defend the Constitution. If the government is going to form a committee and they have an agenda of things they want to change, I want to know what the agenda is. We want to know. We want to know what they want to change. And for her, the minister to tell me today, she can't tell me because she doesn't know. I really don't accept that. The minister has been in this job for a year, primarily working on this. How can they not know the things that they want to change? It just doesn't hold water. So, Madam Speaker, I wrote to the minister on the 24th of January, setting out more or less what I've just said in a little more detail. I haven't yet had a reply. I'm hoping I will get a substantive reply. I wasn't really expecting to have another statement by ministers here today on the subject. Every week we have to be discussing this. We just want to resolve the issue and appoint our members to the committee. But I've asked for some reasonable information and it hasn't been forthcoming. And I hope I'll get it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I indicated to the Leader of the Opposition that the response to his last letter he should get today. And I indicated that to him before I spoke. I didn't make reference to it, but since he has, and I indicated to him that a response was dispatched, but it had an error and it was pulled back. But beyond that, the time between that letter and the response, we were holding some meetings on our side. And that concluded with a special meeting of the Cabinet on Saturday of last week to discuss the constitutional reform issues and some of the concerns raised by the Leader of the Opposition. Perhaps I will hear that I shouldn't say that I'm disappointed that in raising that he couldn't say that I spoke to him that the response would be coming. Perhaps I will hear that. Just to say that one of the reasons why it is difficult to provide the kind of details that the Leader of the Opposition is seeking beyond indicating to him is exemplified in the comment he made about what he said he heard about my saying that there is a need for constitutional reform to effect the unexplained wealth order. That's not really what I said, Madam Speaker. The FID held a conference and I brought opening remarks. And in the process, I shared that, the constitutional reform work is on the way. And there is a provision which was in the old Chapter 3, which was written out of the new charter, the provision at Section 20, subsection 5, that was written out. And when I checked the record, I did not see a reason for the writing out. And those who are awaiting the explained wealth order law, constitutional reform needs to take place. I said that. I didn't say that it was a condition precedent to that provision, any law on that. And Madam Speaker, the provision speaks to protection of the law. So it speaks to the presumption of innocence of every person who is charged with a criminal offense, being presumed innocent until he is proved or has pleaded guilty. And there was a proviso, so that in law is called the legal burden. There was a proviso in the Constitution for the evidential burden, which said that provided that nothing contained in or done under the authority of any law shall be held to be inconsistent with or in contravention of this subsection to the extent that the law in question imposes upon any person charged as aforesaid the burden of proving particular facts. That is the proviso which I indicated was written out of the Constitution, and I did not see a reason. And the Leader of the Opposition is an attorney at law. Madam Speaker, just about every law passed, you hear cries in here and outside and allegations of unconstitutionality. Well, here is the time for us to settle down and look at what we are required to do to address the pressing problems in the nation. The other matter, Madam Speaker, about updating the emergency powers framework. That response was to the opposition's leader's request for what in the charter are you proposing to change. So it's a shifting goalpost. Yes. I have said that lawmaking involves a process, and the government will have to go through that process which has various stages, in order for me to give him the details that he's required. But what I have done is to indicate the areas, as we have discussed them so far, that we are proposing to change. Madam Speaker, there is no piece of legislation that the government can bring to the House like Nicodemus in the night and take anyone by surprise. Constitutional reform matters, especially changing provisions that are either ordinarily entrenched or deeply entrenched, will require work across the aisles. And I cannot understand, perhaps it's just my slowness, what is wrong with my saying that the details you are seeking are not available at this juncture? I am not saying that we will not let you know. I am not planning to take anybody by surprise. I just don't understand it. So, Madam Speaker, I've also said that the constitutional reform work is not starting from scratch. Here is a bundle with background documents that has been prepared for the committee members to be given when the committee is formally constituted. It has a list of documents: summary of the Cabinet decision on constitutional reform, summary of the constitutional reform recommendations of the Joint Select Committee of the Houses of Parliament on Constitutional and Electoral Reform, the Green Paper on Constitutional Reform of 2007, the final report of the Joint Select Committee of the Houses of Parliament on Constitutional and Electoral Reform of 1995, the final report of the Constitutional Committee of Jamaica 1994, the report of the Constitutional Commission of Jamaica 1993, the Jamaica Independence Constitution, the Jamaica Independence Act passed by the Legislative Assembly of Jamaica, and the Jamaica Independence Act passed by the Parliament of the UK simultaneously on the same day. The Interpretation Act of 1889 UK, which applies to the Constitution, and the current Interpretation Act of Jamaica that we use for other laws. It also contains some comparative material: the Constitution of Barbados, Dominica, Mauritius, report of the Constitutional Review Commission of Barbados, article titled The Republic and the Caribbean, Constitution Republic Acts of Barbados, Kenya, Trinidad and Tobago, Mauritius, and a bill to alter the Constitution of Australia for the establishment of a republic. We have selection of articles taken from local newspapers, and it will contain the appointments and the biographies of the committee members. When the committee is constituted, each committee member will be provided with the background documents to assist in the work. I said it repeatedly, we're not starting from scratch. I said it repeatedly, we are picking up on the work done before. Having regard to the passage of time, we will see what new perspectives need to be taken into account. The draft terms of reference have been shared with the Leader of the Opposition. And you know, Madam Speaker, again, perhaps it is my understanding, but the Leader of the Opposition did say that there is no consensus on moving to a republic without consensus on the CCJ. That's what he said in the letter to me, but he's saying something different here today.
Madam Speaker, I have to interject at this point because I'm being misrepresented. I said that the issue of the CCJ is not something that is deferring or delaying our appointment of members to the committee. I was making my position clear that we feel that decolonization should not be pursued in a piecemeal way, but should be done fulsomely and wholesomely. I've said the issues that are deferring or delaying our ability to appoint members of the committee are because we want to know where the government intends to go in amending the Charter of Rights and deeply entrenched matters. That's all. Yeah.
The Leader of the Opposition is saying that I misheard him then, because what I heard was that he said here in the House that he was not saying that the CCJ was a condition.
Yes.
But that's not what I got from his letter. You want to hear what the letter said? Let me try to find it. Madam Speaker, I crave your indulgence.
Contentious, and you do not want this to happen.
Yes.
That is it. Simple. I do every day. I have something to add in here.
Every day.
I was voted.
On a point of order, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on a point of order. Madam Speaker, I'm listening to the member and I'm wondering if, yes, the minister, and I'm wondering if a simple response to the member from South St. Andrews letter would not have sufficed instead of coming to the Parliament for this long drawn-out conversation.
I can't figure your point of order. Order arises when somebody has misinterpreted, and what you have said is not a misinterpretation.
All right, Madam Speaker, you know, I was deliberate in not raising the leader's letter because I didn't want to go through the process. But
are you going to raise it? Well, please go right ahead.
So the letter, the relevant part says, I have noted that you say that there is no consensus on making the Caribbean Court of Justice, CCJ, our final appellate court at this time. Conversely, there is no consensus that Jamaica should move away from the British monarch as our head of state without also moving away from the Privy Council to the CCJ as our final appellate court. We are not in favour of proceeding in the piecemeal manner that you have proposed, with no assurance that full decolonisation will be achieved in phase 2. Madam Speaker.
Member, I don't think it's a waste of time because the member said that the leader wrote to her to say, unless you have the movement away from the CCJ, then he's not in favour of the other provision. And in fact, therefore there is no point of order. That is what she said, that the member said, and that is it. He wants both. He wants both things together.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, accuracy matters. Accuracy matters. Accuracy matters.
And I think you have cleared it up.
I am misquoting no one. I am misquoting
doesn't matter because you didn't have a point of
accuracy matters. Thank you.
Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we seem to have some disorder in the House here.
On either side of the aisle, can I ask all members of Parliament, whenever this gavel goes on, it means we're asking for silence from everybody, and we have young people watching us. House Leader, the House Leader is on the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. One day I'm going to compile the videos from PBCJ and just play it for the members. And you'll find it very revealing. So,
speeches about how the society has fallen into disarray and our young people have no behavior, you will see where they have learned some of it from.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. At this time, Madam Speaker, I ask you to invite the Honorable Audley Shaw, Minister of Transport and Mining, to make his statement.
Minister.
Madam Speaker, the Road Traffic Act was passed in 2018 by both houses of Parliament with the support of both sides of the House. And was Can I be allowed to continue, please? And was crafted with the input of a joint select committee that sat in 2014 and heard from multiple stakeholders, including the Jamaica Association of Transport Operators and Owners, JATU, the Insurance Association of Jamaica, the U-Drive Rent-A-Car Association. The Act is aimed at ensuring that we have safer roads, protecting our children, pedestrians, drivers, all of us that use the road, and reducing our road fatalities. Last year, over 490 persons perished on our roads as a result of collisions. The Act provides the Minister of Transport under Section 110 with broad powers to make regulations under this Act. The Road Traffic Act 2018 was brought into effect on February 1 of this year, 2023. Since then, we have received a fresh wave of feedback from the public, and in hearing their concerns, we have agreed to review aspects of the regulations with a view to address the issues without compromising on the safety and the security of our road operations. One of the most debated aspects is the use of child restraint systems. The regulations place the responsibility on the driver of a vehicle to ensure that every child is conveyed in a prescribed child restraint system under Section 73 of the Act. The protective devices legislation that was introduced in 1999 and included in the Road Traffic Act 1938 in or about 2001 required the use of seatbelt and child restraint systems, but was not previously strictly enforced. Madam Speaker, the safety of our children on our roads is an area of high priority, whether they are walking, on a cycle, or in a motor vehicle. Road fatality statistics reveals that on average, children under the age of 14 years represent just under 3% of the total number of fatalities over the past 6 years. Too many fatal collisions involve persons not using suitable restraints in their vehicles. Although wearing a seatbelt is a simple action that can secure your own safety in an adverse event. Furthermore, children are often not properly secured, with reasons of cost and convenience being most often cited. The legislation seeks to mandate actions to protect children as best as possible from the effects of a collision. We are, however, aware that in some cases a compromise has to be made when the practical realities are taken into account. The realities of our public passenger transportation system and how it operates will place an undue burden on parents whose children need to travel in public transportation, whether accompanied by an adult or not. The risk of the inability to access transportation services may exceed the risk associated with travel without using a child restraint system. And in this regard, the rules applicable to public transport vehicles will have to be less stringent than those for private vehicles. In response to the foregoing, a regulation is to be inserted, making reference to the type of child restraint required for the conveyance of children based on age and size in different types of vehicles. The child seat requirement will be a table added to the 13th schedule to set out, that is of the regulations, to set out what is required for different categories of vehicles based on the different age, size ranges, and different types of restraints. Under the updated requirements, in the case of licensed public passenger cars or buses, children under 1 year old must be restrained by an adult. 1 to 3 year old may travel with no restraint or be restrained by an adult. 3 to 6 years old may travel without restraint, restrained by an adult or a lap belt. 6 to 9 years old may travel without restraint or with a lap belt. Children over 9 years old may travel without restraint with a lap belt or a 3-point seat belt. Only children who are of the weight and size to use an adult seat belt are permitted to travel in the front passenger seat. In addition, where an adult is restraining a child, the adult should not be in the front. Children under 1 year old are to be restrained by an adult in all forms of transport. All other children must be transported using appropriate restraint based on their size and weight. Guidelines have been set out so persons can determine what kind of restraint is applicable for different categories. In licensed taxis and buses, children are allowed to travel without restraint, but where a lap belt is available, it should be used. If a child is of the size to use an adult belt, this may be used if available. In all instances, the driver must wear a seatbelt, whether operating privately or as public passenger vehicles. Madam Speaker, the implementation of the RTA 2018 and its regulations have evoked much needed response from our stakeholders. And we as a government have a responsibility to create laws that benefit the people of the nation's overall well-being. We have heard the feedback from the people and are prepared to take into consideration all the variables. However, it must be clear that there will be no compromise on the intent of the law and the safety of our people. We have always been a government that welcomes dialogue at the discussion table, and this has not changed. Using the regulations is the quicker way to achieve the objective of embracing public passenger vehicles and their passengers. We welcome any feedback as we work to build a better Jamaica. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, we on this side welcome the statement and the proposed amendments by the Minister of Transport. But, Madam Speaker, you know, it's the first time that I've been in this House since this government has been in power that they have tried to cast blame and said that all of us should take responsibility. But let me remind the Minister of in his conclusion, where he says, and we as a government have a responsibility. Because I remember, Madam Speaker, both in the debate for the Road Traffic Act and for even the regulations itself, that we on this side made multiple recommendations for amendments in different aspects of the Act in the debate, both here in the lower house and in the upper house, which was not accepted. Which was not accepted. Which was not accepted.
Madam Speaker, the point of order. Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker,
Madam Speaker, the
I
point
see
of
no
order.
reason for me to yield.
Madam Speaker, the point of order. You know I'm going to stand up on it. You know I'm going to do it. Madam Speaker, I think the member is misleading the House. The matter at hand relates to seat belts. The statement related exclusively to the issue of children in public passenger vehicles and child restraints. The opposition member is seeking to conflate to make it seem to the House. To make it seem to the
Madam
House
Speaker, on a point of order, Madam Speaker.
That their amendments had to do
on
with child
point of order,
restraints that they
Speaker.
suggested. They offered no amendments regarding child restraints. They offered no amendments to child restraints. So he cannot stand there and mislead the House and the public to make it seem or to extricate them from the passage of that law.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as the members attempt to try and just disrupt, and you're allowing him to disrupt, because I spoke of many suggestions for amendment. I never did single out child sleep, man. Look here now.
And that I am allowing the member. You're not even addressing me. You're speaking across the aisle.
Madam Speaker, you're much more beautiful to look at than the member over there. That is disturbing. Madam Speaker, there comes a time, because I saw in the press release last week where they are trying to imply that it was a former Minister of Transport, that it is coming from that time, when we have accepted that it has been in law from even before that. But it was this administration that had the opportunity in 2018 when they retabled. That if they wanted to, they could have changed it. So you can't be pointing fingers when things go bad. Madam Speaker.
Members of the House. The Minister, members
Madam
of the
Speaker.
House. The Minister rose in a statement to address a particular aspect of the law. And the member on the opposition is speaking. The crosstalk is not necessary. And in response, I thought that when a statement is made in this House, the response relates to the statement. The statement before the House relates to the regulation as it speaks to the necessity for a child restraint. Please allow the member from the opposition to make his point in relation to the restraint, which is what the minister addressed this afternoon.
Madam Speaker,
the minister's general point, apart from that specific regulation, was in relation that his government stands open to discussions. So your response will relate to the statement he made to the restraint of the child thing, and if you wish to respond to his comment that his government is open to discussions.
Madam Speaker, if you have a copy of the minister's statement, if you refer to the first page, I'm responding to the minister's statement speaking about the responsibility of all of us inside here. And I'm just clarifying, Madam Speaker, that the minister, in his own press release last week, referred to the former minister, and without taking responsibility for the country to understand that the administration had an opportunity to change it if they had wished. That's all the point I'm making, Madam Speaker. But Madam Speaker, this in itself, Madam Speaker, is giving confirmation, as I have repeatedly spoken about, the public education. Because if public education was done in the way that we expect public education to take place, then matters like this could have been dealt with a long time ago. But also a wider conversation with the society, Madam Speaker. Because yes, the Act and the regulations were passed years ago. But as I have mentioned before, that there are some drastic changes in this, and we have to blame ourselves too, because many of what is now in the new Act was already in law before, but was not enforced. That many people, many members of the public didn't even know that you needed that on the toll road, that a record was the only contract in the business to be able to remove vehicles. Many persons didn't know certain aspects of the law. So to say that they should have known, Madam Speaker, is unfair and insensitive. Madam Speaker,
I just want to break and say all these regulations and all these acts that are passed, they are passed with us all sitting in Parliament, or all should be sitting here, both opposition as well as government. So we are all responsible.
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, just a suggestion, Minister, that in the schedule that you have stated here. No. So, Madam Speaker, again, let me give our support on this side to the amendments that are being proposed. But that also, see, you came all with your ears plugged because I started out by saying that. But just to add, Madam Speaker, just to ensure that there's no children of this age in the public transport, that even if they're on their own private business, that they are not, that they do not travel in the front seat of these vehicles. Yes. That has to be at least said in the amendment. No, it spoke about it, about those who are older. We're saying those that are much younger, that they're, or even in the lap of an individual in the front seat. Village lawyer. So, Madam Speaker, Village lawyer. Madam Speaker, again, we on this side also want to ensure that we don't lose any more lives to any further carnage on the road. Because, you know, any life lost is one that affects not only the family, but affects the wider society. And last year we saw a record number of deaths on the road. And it is a responsibility for all of us that even those who are using the roads, Madam Speaker, have a personal responsibility. Has a personal responsibility in how it is that they traverse in these public passenger vehicles, in their own vehicles, and how it is that they utilize the roadway. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, outside of the issues of Road Traffic Act and its regulations, you have the Transport Authority Act, which is which we were told we were waiting on the regulations to bring the Transport Authority Act. Because when you look at the regulations, Madam Speaker, it speaks to public transport, it speaks to seating in the regulations, it didn't speak to any safety harness or any safety features in the regulations itself. Then you have the Transport Authority Act, which will be speaking to public transport. We probably need to look at how it is that we tidy up some of the issues with public transport. The events of the last few weeks, Madam Speaker, have taken away the focus on public transport itself. Public transport contributes about 5% to GDP. It's huge. It deals with the productivity. It deals with the movement of goods, not only people. It is an important part to our economy. And to where public transport is concerned, there needs to be a national dialogue in how it is that we provide a modern public transport system, not only for those in the KMTR, but also in rural parishes. So, Madam Speaker, we on this side, we're open to that dialogue. We are not against the Road Traffic Act, but we voiced our concerns during the debate. And I can assure you, Madam Speaker, many of those recommendations that we made on this side were not taken. Hence why we are saying there ought to be good public education prior to and consultation to. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, please don't get some order in the House from prevent the member over there from being his usual disruptive way. Madam Speaker, you made a point. You made a point, Madam Speaker, that the matter brought by the Minister of National Security on the safety of the children in the transport was the focus. But it's part of the Road Traffic Act that why we are having this discussion. And the Minister also made the point that further to the response publicly why he's here this afternoon. And we welcome your attempt to ameliorate the problem which has been highlighted and the impact it's having in the society. But in that context, Madam Speaker, in the discussions in the Road Traffic Act, there's another item, Minister, that I would like you to consider addressing while you are doing this one. And it relates to the penalty or fine for the lights on the motor vehicle. I have always maintained that while persons must make sure that the lights are working, there are some things that all of us don't have control over. Those are electrical devices that it can be working this minute. So you leave out your house, because I remember in the discussion the police officers made the point that you have a responsibility to check the lights before you leave home. Fine. But the fact of the matter, Minister, it can be working when you drove out and 5 minutes down the road, it's gone. It's not fair for persons like those, any such persons, to be penalized at the level they are being penalized for such circumstances. The alternative proposal, Minister, is that when that occurs, the person be given a warning ticket. And this happens in other jurisdictions. Yeah, we're talking about making a good, bad situation better. Give them a warning ticket. Specify 5 days or whatever time it is that they must correct it. Because at the time when the discussion were taking place, we never had the ticketing system that could provide real-time information when the police stop you on the road. That has changed. Once a ticket is written, it can go into that central clearinghouse where the information is there. So if you drive down the road 15 minutes time and a police stop you, he can immediately check independently and verify that you were warned. And so he doesn't have to give you a ticket. Minister, our people must not feel
that their government, the state, is being unfair to them. We have an obligation to be reasonable and to be practical in instances like these. So I crave your indulgence, Minister, that while you're doing the seatbelt issue, make us just fix that same time. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, when a government brings legislation to Parliament and passes it, the government must accept responsibility for the contents of that legislation. It has a majority and it uses a majority to pass. There are many pieces of legislation that come here. Members on this side may express concerns or a dislike of a specific provision, may point out potential adverse consequences if it is enacted in that form, but at the same time support the legislation as a whole as a step forward. So, for example, in the recent firearms legislation, when it was being debated in here, I pointed out that I had real reservations about the impact of discontinuing the applicability of the guilty plea mechanism in the Criminal Justice Administration Act to firearms offences under Part 2 of the new Firearms Act. The impact that would have on court backlog by tending to ensure that many more cases go to trial, and the impact on the prison system of these very long mandatory minimum sentences. I didn't vote against the Firearms Act because I recognized Jamaica needed to modernize its firearms legislation. But that doesn't mean that I support every aspect of it. The big point here, though, is a government, whether the bill originated with a previous government or not, when they decide to move forward with legislation, that is their decision. And they must own it for better or for worse. They are married to it. Now, on this child seat issue, Section 73 of the Road Traffic Act 2018 prohibits a child under the age of 12 riding in a vehicle unless there's a prescribed child restraint system in place. That provision existed previously to 2018, as I understand it. It was not enforced. With the new Act coming into effect on February 1, with a very inadequate public education effort on the part of the government, for which the minister responsible for information bears full responsibility, though he tries to pretend as if he's acquitted his responsibility adequately, which he has not.
Which point of order?
On a point of order. No. No. He's misleading the House, Madam Speaker. I did not bear full responsibility for the public. Allow me to finish. I do not have responsibility for the public education of the Road Traffic Act 2018 because I was not even in Parliament when the Act was passed. They are the ones who sat on the committee and sat in here and passed it. I was not here.
Now you're misleading the House.
Member. Members. Really, members. Member, you're sitting right beside your leader and carrying on like that. I cannot, no, I'm not going to allow you, not with your opposition on on person on finance, right beside you, behaving like that. But, yes, but while you're having a friendly exchange, your leader is on the floor. No, but you continued while the leader, that's why he sat.
totally out of order, Madam Speaker. Totally out of order.
Two members came in feet. Two members came in feet.
Minister, please. Please. We can get up. Listen. The behavior in Parliament. Member, Minister, you cannot, and I do not expect you, as a Minister of Information, to sit and do that. It is not correct. Two wrongs don't make a right, and I don't expect you to do that. Please. 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 He was not finished speaking. He wasn't finished. You have to let some things pass you. I can't hear. I did not even hear what the leader of the opposition said. I cannot hear.
Please don't. It's all right. Madam Speaker, if I may be permitted to continue, because Madam Speaker, if I may be permitted to continue. Oh.
I've heard what the minister has said, but I cannot rule on something that I did not hear. And it goes to the fact that the talking and the crosstalk at the level you is taking place between both sides is not allowing me to hear what is being said. And no, I'm speaking. Hold a minute. Minister, I am asking all of us, as members of this Parliament, to just remember that we are on display and nobody, I'm speaking and you are still speaking, you have not learned first time, member. I'm addressing you and I find it very rude the way you are behaving. I am talking about the fact that on both sides of the aisle, our behavior has not been good. And when it is that the Gleaner writes, we all take offense. I'm asking you, and we have students in the gallery, please.
Madam Speaker, in that you didn't, and not just hear me out, please, Madam Speaker, I know my right in this house, in that you didn't hear what the leader of the opposition said. Can I assist you? Yes. Madam Speaker, may I say something, Madam Speaker? In that you didn't hear what the leader of the opposition said, can I assist you in what he said?
I am correct. I am not going to rule on something that I did not hear.
Do you want to call an answer?
I will not do that. And please, and I'm going to say something now. The fact is that if the behavior of the Parliament had not dropped to the low it has dropped this evening, I would have been able to hear everything. So when somebody is on their feet speaking, if you have something to say, if it is a point of order, you get up and say you have a point of order, and you indicate what your point of order is and the other person. If you don't cross-talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I was saying, Section 73 of the Road Traffic Act 2018 makes it a criminal offence for a driver to have a child under 12 in the vehicle when it's being operated, unless there's a prescribed child restraint system. That's in the law currently. It has been in the law for some time. It was not previously enforced. The government brought the Road Traffic Act 2018 into force on the 1st of February, which is a week or so ago. Drivers of public passenger vehicles began to be ticketed because they were transporting children. Many children across Jamaica rely on taxis and other public transportation to get to school and back. It created a big problem, and there was an outcry on the matter. I'm glad that the Minister with responsibility for transport has announced an intention to introduce a new schedule into the regulations. I believe it's Schedule 13, with a regime dealing with that. The regime as outlined is a very liberal regime, and I dare say it should be accepted by the broad population if it is made clear as to its impact and there's a proper public education system effort behind it, along with the other aspects of the new law which have changed the way people are expected to behave, which we have not had adequately so far. But in the meantime, I don't know when this amendment is going to be made. My understanding is that it will have to come to the House for approval. Well, why did the regulations come to the House in the first place then?
So, I'm not, do you want me to? I don't know, only if you, after.
Yeah, my understanding is that those regulations are subject to affirmative resolution.
No, so
Member, just to clarify.
Yeah, the Road Traffic Act indicates the areas under which regulations would require affirmative resolution. This would not be one of those areas. It has specific areas that it requires. So the regulations that would come would not require any sort of affirmative resolution, so they would not have to come to the House. So the Minister can make these regulations by order and have them gazetted, hence a much quicker process.
Thank you, Member.
That's good news. I don't know what that timeline is, Minister. I'm interested for you to give us some commitment as to when that will happen. Huh? You haven't indicated in your presentation. You have not said in your presentation when you expect those regulations to be made and gazetted. Yeah, so I'd ask if you could give us an indication of when that will be done. In the meantime, Section 73 in its current form is problematic. There's been a video circulating of a senior police officer responsible for traffic indicating that the police are being expected to exercise their discretion while this matter is being sorted out and so on. But in the meantime, taxi operators have that liability if they carry a child and they don't have a child restraint system. Many countries in the world with modern public transportation systems do not require a child restraint system for public passenger vehicles carrying children. And indeed, under this regime, which has been announced, which is not yet in effect, but hopefully will come soon, the reality is that if one reads it, it says 1 to 3 years old may travel with no restraint or be restrained by an adult. 3 to 6 years old may travel without restraint or restrained by an adult or a lap belt. 6 to 9 may travel without restraint or with a lap belt. Children over 9 may travel without restraint or with a lap belt. So this regime basically allows for a no restraint system for public passenger vehicles. I have brought a bill, which I'm seeking the leave of the House shortly, when we get to that stage on the agenda, to introduce, which would amend Section 73 of the Act so that the criminal offence of driving without a child restraint system, and where you get a fine of $5,000 plus 4 demerit points if you are the driver, would not apply to public passenger vehicles. And that, I brought it here just because I made that commitment last week amidst the chaos that was caused. Because the truth of the matter is, I don't think anybody focused on that specific provision because it had not been enforced before. And it was not problematic before. But with the advent of the new act and the zeal around establishing that the new act meant a new departure from what went before, the police were assiduously enforcing it, and it created a huge problem with children being stranded, etc., etc. So, Madam Speaker, I would ask the Minister if he would please indicate when he expects these regulations to be in place, i.e. signed by him and gazetted, so that they become, and assuming that the Minister Green is correct, that they do not have to come here for approval, then that would make it a quicker process. So, Minister, thank you.
Is a question, Madam Speaker. The Minister's indicated, yes, he has indicated, Madam Speaker, certain age groups, 1 to 3, 3 to 6, etc. I think it's very important for us to be clear in this House. How will we be able to determine the police, that is, or the operator, whose responsibility will it be to determine the age group? It's very important. So it is important, Minister, so could you give us some clarification on how that will be done?
Can I, Madam Speaker, on the same issue, I have heard the issue of age. I just have a concern, and this is borne by my own personal experience. You have children who are below the age of 12, but who are physically well developed and big. And I can use my own son as an example, who he's 8, 2 years ago, he couldn't sit in a child seat. How do you deal with a situation where you have children who physically can't hold in a child seat or even in a booster seat because they're just physically too big, and you would be breaking the law by carrying those children outside of the child seat?
I think basically the same sort of questions in relation to age have been placed. It's age and size that has.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank the members of the opposition for their responses and their observations. And I just want to say that
questions came from your side and the minister is trying to answer.
Yes.
You should try and listen.
I just want to say that the regulations, Madam Speaker, in relation to the amendments which I have announced today, will be carried out this very week, And to also let everyone know that we are giving a 3-month period where other issues that will no doubt arise will all lead over 3 months. Within 3 months, we intend to make whatever additional amendments that need to be made to the Act will be done to the Act as well. And I just want to say as well that I agree that the public education program has to be stepped up much more aggressively. Yes, I'm agreeing with that. I am agreeing with that. It has to be stepped up, aggressively. And we intend to do that. Thank you very much. And I just want to say that in all of this, this is not about us seeking now to, trying to claim credit across from one another, right? This amounts now to the safety and security of our children. And we must put that at the front and make sure that, and remind our drivers of public passenger vehicles that when they are driving, whether minibuses or taxis, cars, they must remember that the children that are in that car, they must be more careful to make sure that they are protecting our children that are the future of our country. I just also want to say that when it comes to the question of weight and height indicators, if a child is big enough to use a full belt, then we encourage and make sure that that child uses that belt. And I think it's important that we use this opportunity to remind public passenger vehicles and taxis, have seat belts in your car. If you don't have them, install them. Have them on the back seats as well. Put 3 seat belts on the back seats. The right, the left, and the middle, along with your seat belts on the front seats. This is not, when it comes to public safety and the safety of our children, this is not politics. This is not us trying now to gain anything above one another. This is to protect our children, protecting them for the future of Jamaica. And I just want to say to the opposition, whether you gave your suggestions now or you want to give it later, right? I am ready to listen to what you have to say, because this is very important. And I'm going to look, as you have requested, on the issue of the penalties for lights on vehicles, and because I agree with you that lights could go off at any time and a warning ticket should be considered. So I want to thank you for your observations. Yes?
Madam Speaker, thank you very much, and thank you very much, Minister, for understanding what is happening on the road. But I have 2 questions. One, in regards to cars, motor vehicles, when importing, we must make sure that we don't import these vehicles without retrofitting proper seat belts, because it makes no sense. We tell them to do it and they can't do it, because we have been importing vehicles in this country that have no seat belt. Probably have at the front, and you look at the back, there is none. But there's another question I would want to find out. For those persons who were ticketed, in regards to the breach that we are now discussing in terms of the seat belt, will they be nullified?
Yeah, the 3 months.
I haven't said anything much on this, but I must tell you that the issue, it seems to me that the issue of child safety is a real one. I was just wondering about the data that the government has or should have and perhaps have. Is it possible for, and I assume that the initial position taken by the government was perhaps based upon the data, the evidence that it was viewing or the technical people were viewing. Because I'm wondering if that data is so compelling, why, and we have the data, instead of simply giving in to the outcry, why don't you do the right thing, which is perhaps look at a way in which we can meet, because one of the concerns is the cost to the consumer and the user, right? One of the concerns is a cost to the consumer, right? One of the concerns is a cost to I said the minister is trying to hear Desmond. Yeah. One of the concerns you mentioned is the cost to the parents, right? That this should impose a cost to some persons who can't afford it. If the issue is affordability, might the government consider then addressing the issue with the cost by subsidizing the cost to deal with the safety issue? If the issue of safety is paramount and it's borne out by evidence, isn't that a way to deal with it, to address, to subsidize the cost to at least those who can least afford it? Is that something that the ministry has looked at as an alternative, other than simply resiling from the issue in totality? Could that be considered?
Member, before the minister rises, member, certainly the issue of the safety of our children cannot be driven by data, because the safety of every child is important. And when we travel abroad, we know what the rules are, and those rules are placed for the safety of all children. Therefore, when it is that you have a vehicle, if it happens to be imported, doesn't have a seatbelt, we all have a duty to look after the safety of our children. No, member before you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Just one question to the Minister, especially with the introduction that you made in wrapping up about in the next 3 months and using that period to identify some of the issues. The question I want to ask is, what would the JCF be expected to do during that period? I know that they are a set who would normally tell you they don't like to act of discretion. They want to know that there are clear laws. But I believe, since you have given that 3-month period, which I think is good, you need to make it clear exactly what is expected to happen in those 3 months as it relates to breaches.
Madam Speaker, as a rural girl, deep rural girl. Yeah, man, deep rural. It has got, you have gotten better. Okay, I'll vote for you next time. All right. But, Madam Speaker, the Minister of Local Government is obstructing the proceedings of the House, and I seek your protection at this time. But as a rural girl, no, I'm
on both sides of the aisle, I have not been able to successfully give protection to anybody this evening because of the general behavior.
I'll make my question quick, Madam Speaker. I grew up in a community where taking your produce to market was a great part of how people made their living. And I don't know about social changes, but I can't tell you about women. And the truth is, while I think we need to modernize transportation, which takes our people from source to market, what still exists is still a market truck. And that market truck takes with it produce along with marketeers, the vendors. The law prescribes that there be a separation from your goods. So the truck should carry the goods, and you have to take a separate mode of transportation. That's what it prescribes right now. I'm asking that when you're looking, look back at this, because Practically, we're not there right now. Ideally, it's perhaps where we need to go. But I think as a government and as a people, we have to be sensitive to the needs of our people right now and where we are and the limitations that exist. So I'm asking you to revisit that one. The market people, they really can't identify enough a load of cane. By the time it reached the Spanish town from Brownsville, some of the cane are go missing, and you can't tell who take what cane and which cane was crawfish from which was white cane. So I'm just saying, if we can allow for it to continue until we have gotten to a place where we can properly determine how it is that we'll be able to transport them both and keep their goods safe and keep them safe as well. Thank you.
Minister, just one point of clarification in relation to how these regulations will be promulgated. Section 110 of the Act says that regulations which provide for custodial sentences are subject to affirmative resolution. That provide for custodial sentences in them are subject to affirmative resolution. The regulations that were brought into effect along with the Act, very voluminous, have for approval and to the Senate, and they were approved. Are you saying that if you're amending regulations that have custodial sentences in them, you can amend them without bringing them to Parliament? Is that what you're saying? Because the Schedule 13 is going to be an amendment to the regulations, as I understand it. Yeah. So I'm just asking that because that seems counterintuitive to me.
Madam Speaker, let me say that this is not a process that is magical and everything will be done by the snap of a finger and done overnight, okay? This is a work in progress, and I've listened to you, all of you, very carefully, and I just want to say that starting with the issue that the leader of the opposition has pointed out a while ago, I will be consulting with the appropriate people, the Attorney General and others. And if it has to come back to the House, we bring it back to the House. No problem. I think that's just the responsible thing to do, right? And I also want to say that, you know, although we have eased up on the seat belts, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't encourage the culture of seat belts, okay? So that I agree with your presentation when you suggested that some of the cars that are coming here don't have any seat belts in the back. And we must find a way to ensure that seat belts are installed in these vehicles, right? So it's not, this can be seen as a transitional type of thing. But we want to let the people know that we are encouraging the use of seat belts for both adults and younger children, okay? And I want to say as well that I think there are about 25 tickets that were issued once the new act was in place for children in vehicles. That will be looked at in terms of reversing, taking away those based on what we have put together. And just as I said before, this is a work in progress, and I agree with you that the information system must be stepped up so that we have the understanding and the agreement of the people that all of this is about the safety of our people and our children on the road. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes. Yes.
Is it only as it relates to the child restraint device in the vehicles?
No, it's not.
Okay, that's what I want.
No.
Does it relate to all the provisions in the new act as of February 1st, or just that? And what range of items does this 3-month refers to? I'm not clear on that. Everything. That's what I was asking.
Yes.
Maybe the minister wants time to check to see what
I just want to say, Madam Speaker, that when I refer to the 3 months, it was not confined to the issue that we have been discussing here alone. There are other areas of fine-tuning that we might have to do, and that is why we have allowed a 3-month period that we can look at it. If you have suggestions, please put them forward as well, because what we want to do is to create a more perfect system. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
What about the market people?
Yes, so Madam Speaker, just on a point of clarity that may assist the House in deliberation. So the Prime Minister has asked that the National Road Safety Council undertake a series of reviews around the implementation of the Road Traffic Act. So we will have our first meeting tomorrow. We will outline a process through which people can communicate. So the Road Traffic Act is in force, but as we go through the implementation phase, we do expect that people may raise issues, as we have heard from the member in relation to whether it be agricultural produce, market vendors. So we will look at broad issues, and then at the appropriate time we'll make a report to Cabinet, and then we will see if there are any amendments that are needed that will come to the House. No, there's no. So just to be clear, Madam Speaker, the law has come into force, and the law is being implemented, right? As you go through implementation, because this is a law that has some new provisions, and also, as we have seen, they are long-standing provisions that are being implemented that unfortunately some people seem to be unaware of, right? When you go through the implementation phase, you can't see some of these challenges until the implementation phase. When you go through the implementation phase, where issues are raised, we will look back at it. Every issue raised doesn't mean that there will be a change, right? But what we're outlining is a process through which those issues can be addressed. So, for example, as we have seen, Madam Speaker, issue raised, government acted to make a change, and this government will listen and act.
Announcements.
Laid on it.
The class is on her feet.
Laid on the table of the House today are the following: annual report on audited financial statements for the Public Broadcasting Corporation of Jamaica, PBCJ, for the financial year 2009 to 2012. Annual report for the Export-Import Bank of Jamaica, Exim Bank, for the financial year 2020-2021. Addendum to previously tabled report reflecting the period July to September 2022 under the Indicom Commission of Investigation Act 2010. And Indicom report reflecting the period October to December 22, Indicom's Strategic Vision 2022 under the Indicom under the Independent Commission of Investigations Act 2010.
Bills brought from the Senate, petitions, papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally.
Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, I will move the following motion. Be it resolved with reference to the sessional select, joint select, and select committees which are appointed in the current session of Parliament, and where these committees have not completed their deliberations, that in the new session of Parliament, this Honourable House be empowered to enable these committees to proceed with the issues referred to them from the stage reached before prorogation. Be it further resolved that the composition of all these committees remain unchanged except where necessary by further motion taken and approved by this Honourable House. And be it further resolved with reference to the matters identified below, which are included in the order of business in this session of Parliament, but for which deliberations have not been completed, that in the new session of Parliament, the House be empowered to proceed with them from the stage reached before prorogation. 1. The Partnership, General Forms, Regulation 2021 Resolution. 2. The Leprosy Repeal Act. 3. The Customs Act 2020. 4. Private members' motions, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, and 33. Madam Speaker, I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today, I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take this motion.
Sorry, Madam Speaker. I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, I will move to introduce and have read a first time a bill shortly entitled the Road Traffic Amendment Act 2023.
Motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice. Motions relating to sittings of the House. Motions for leave to introduce bills. Presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I now seek leave to introduce and have read a first time a bill shortly entitled the Road Traffic Amendment Act 2023.
Members of the House, the question is for the member to be granted leave to have read a first time a bill shortly entitled the Road Traffic Amendment Act 2023. Those in favor?
No.
Those against? There's a divide. If there's a divide, let me have the clerk to call the register.
Mr. Bartlett, Mr. Brown, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brown-Burke, Dr. Chang, Dr. Charles? Mr. Charles? Charles? Colonel Charles? We want Mr. Charles in here. Mr. Charles? No, I can't hear. Okay. Mr. Chin? Mr. Chuck? Mr. Clark? Dr. Clark? Mr. Cousins? I heard two answer member. Mr. Cousins, I heard two answers. All right, him clarified. Miss Crawford? Miss Crawford? Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn? Miss Daly? Miss Daly? Miss Davis? Mr. Davis? Dr. Dunn? Mr. Golding? Mr. Graham? Miss Grange? Mr. Green? Dr. Guy? Miss Hamilton? Miss Hannah? Mr. Henry Kitts? Mr. Henry? Mr. Holness? Mrs. Holness? Mr. Hutchinson? Mr. Hilton? Mr. Jackson? Mr. Lawrence? Miss Lee? Mrs. Malawi Fort?
May I just seek a clarity? Is this the same matter that is being addressed by the Minister Shaw? I'm sorry, is this the same matter? Okay, if it's the same matter, no.
No. Mr. Main? Mr. Mackenzie? Mr. Miller? Miss Morrison? Mr. Montague? Mr. Morgan? Mrs. Nita Garvey? Mr. Paulwell? Mr. Phillips? Dr. Phillips? Mr. Robertson? Mr. Robinson? Mr. Samuda? Mr. Shaw? Mr. Siblist? Mr. Slowly? Miss Smith? Mr. Terry Long? Dr. Tufton? Dr. Tufton. Okay, sorry. Mrs. Vaz? Mr. Vaz? Mr. Warmington? Dr. Wheatley? Mr. Williams? Mrs. Williams? Mr. Wilson? Mr. Witter? Mr. Wright?
Members, the results of the divide, there are 11 ayes, 28 noes, and 23 absent persons. So leave has not been granted for the motion to be carried. Public business.
Madam Speaker, I now move Madam Speaker, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the motion, notice of which I gave earlier.
The question before the House is that the standing orders be suspended to allow the member to take the motion, notice of which she gave earlier. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it.
Madam Speaker, as stated earlier, that we're asking for support of the motion regarding the sessional select, joint select and select committees to be carried forward, and you know, right? So at this point, Madam Speaker, I ask for the motion. I ask that the motion be approved.
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Normally, we would carry over all the sessional committees, private members' motion, and also questions. So I will add to the resolution that questions be added to the agenda item. No.
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, so as not to prolong this, did I hear somebody say divide?
Madam Speaker, could the clerk just advise, is it normal for questions which have not yet been answered, which have been formally tabled, to be part of the carryover motion?
Normally.
Is that the case or not?
Members, I am advised that the usual practice is that only motions are carried over. So in fairness to the Deputy House Leader sitting this afternoon, she would have to have instructions from elsewhere before she could stand on her own to respond to that.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I always take guidance. And based on the guidance I received, I've put forward this motion. So at this time, Madam Speaker, I ask for the motion to be approved. Yes.
Question is that the motion, notice of which the House Leader and Minister gave earlier, be now approved. Those in favour? Those against? You know, members, I'm just going to crave your indulgence just for a moment. It is something I have discussed with the Deputy House Leader, and I'm going to say it even as we prorogue this Parliament. Whenever it is that the Speaker asks a question, I ask you all, and I'm saying it with all seriousness, to listen to the question, be sure that you understand it before you say aye. And I say that with good reason because, hold on, because there are matters that have been approved in this House that when they go elsewhere and the discussions take place, the requisite approval is not given. So I'm saying this out of concern for all of us and the fact that when we say aye, we should be aware and truly understand and agree with the I and can defend it. Clerk is bringing to our attention and for the records to indicate the correct numbers that were counted on the divide. You had 11 people agreeing, ayes. There were 29, not 28, 29 noes, and there were 22 persons absent, not 23. So it's A, the ayes have it for 11, the noes 29, and there were 22 persons absent.
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, this was certainly a lively session, and on behalf of the members on this side, whatever rowdiness took place, I apologize. And at this time, Madam Speaker, it is not contemplated for us to do any further business today. I therefore ask that the House adjourns for a date to be fixed.
Thank you, House Leader, and I do take the apology on behalf of the government members seriously, and I trust that you will, with the House Leader, speak with your members and ask them to look at the new term in a different light. And remember that we are the leaders, and our young people are looking to us to lead in a particular fashion.
Madam Speaker, on a point of order.
Yes.
Last week we were notified. Yes, last week we were notified that the House would be prorogued tonight. I was anticipating, because by the end of this month, this House, the country, would be in breach of a law. And we were anticipating that such a law would have been addressed before we prorogue. That is the law that enables the postponement of local government elections. Those elections ought to be held by the 27th of this month. Now we are going on proroguement, and we are back by next week, and then Standing Finance Committee by the 1st of March. So this Parliament is not expected to sit before the 27th of February, which would mean that the highest court in the land, we would be in breach of our own law. So I'd like to ascertain from the House Leader where we're at with
that. Madam Speaker, through you, I will ascertain from the House Leader. If you notice, we have adjourned for a date to be fixed.
Members, the question before the House is that this Parliament do adjourn for a date to be fixed. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it. This House is now adjourned.
Reggae Month is February. February is Reggae Month. Go catch the rhythm on Reggae Month TV, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. daily in February. Catch the mega reggae concerts, interesting reggae documentaries and symposia, reggae conversations with pioneers of the music, and lots more. Reggae Month TV all days in February, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. on PBCJ and the Ministry of Culture social media pages. Get all the details real time on the Reggae Jamaica mobile app and come catch the rhythm this Reggae Month.
Something is happening for someone in this country every single day as a result of the actions of this government. The beneficiary of this house and the hundreds of people who have benefited so far, they feel good and their families feel good.
Oh, I'm on top of the world. It's just a dream come true. Somebody see that they deserve it and then brought it to life for me.
There was no schism, there was nothing behind it. It was just, okay, you're in need and I'm going to do whatever I can do to ensure that you're helped because you're somebody that is in help. It renewed such a hope in me. I want that to be understood.
I thank the team. I thank everybody for this house.
We must take all steps to ensure that whoever is the beneficiary is genuinely in need and deserving of it.
Meet 6 young people doing great things to tackle poverty, inequality, exclusion, and crisis in Jamaica. They're part of teams leading game-changing solutions and valued partners in UNDP's Ready, Set, Great Youth Development Showcase 2020 and 2021. These are their stories.
Hi, I'm Ministerial Roden, founder and executive director of Young Women and Men of Purpose. Some of the main problems that young people face that we work with are that they do not get proper career guidance. So many young people do not know the career path that they want to pursue, and for those who know, we find that many of them have never had any guidance as to how to achieve the career path that they're interested in.
I'll go through pitching from the canvas.
They've never spoken with anyone in the field that they're interested in. They do not know the subjects that they need to choose to get there. Many of them face challenges getting employment after they have completed school. Some of them, they are interested in starting their own businesses, but again, they do not know how because they've never been introduced to entrepreneurship as a course. And so these are some of the key problems that we see them having. As an organization, we have a career mentoring program for young people between 13 and 25 years. They enroll in the program. We allow them to take the career quiz to figure out what career paths they can pursue based on the subject that they're interested in and also based on their skills, interest, and passion. Once they have done that, then we introduce them to the career and we also pair them with different mentors, persons in the field that they're interested in, so that they can learn more about the program. Another key thing that the organization does is we have entrepreneurship programs where we provide entrepreneurship training and support to young people who are interested in becoming entrepreneurs. Not only do we provide the training or theoretical training, but we give them practical experience, connecting them to successful entrepreneurs in the field. We also try to ensure that we're equipping them with the necessary resources through seed funding to actually get them started. And we connect them with agencies and organizations that support entrepreneurs in Jamaica, such as the Companies Office, the Tax Administration, JIPO, and other agencies that support entrepreneurship. We are already doing work to help to reduce poverty through our career development program as well as our entrepreneurship programs. And the reason is that youth unemployment can be reduced if more young people know the career path that they want to pursue